Hello and welcome to today's episode of I Get It. I am so glad that you are here, and I am jumping on to this intro to give you a warning that this episode is an adults only episode. So we are going to dive in deep, if you know what I mean. And talk about that issue.
How old is adults only?
If you don't want to answer certain questions from your kids that you may not be ready to navigate, you may want to put your earbuds in.
Earbuds?
Yeah. Your
AirPods.
Yeah. Your AirPods. And do the dishes solo. Put them in the backyard, wherever they need to go. Because we're talking about marriage and all the fun parts of it.
You don't have to have kids in order to listen to the podcast.
Oh, for sure. No, I'm saying this episode is not for tiny ears. This episode is also not for my mother to bring up later. Mom, this is your warning as well, because this isn't the first time I've mentioned sex on the episode and you brought it up. And if you do it this time, we will not talk for 2 weeks. This is your warning. I love you. Let's dive in. We are talking all about sex today. We've been dancing around it, going all in. Here we go.
Here we go.
Welcome to I Get It, a podcast for the modern woman who doesn't want to live mediocre. We're balancing babies on our hips, typing out that important email, and flipping pancakes at the same time. Not to mention, keeping things steamy with our husbands right before we put our face mask on for the night. It's not easy, and you are not alone. I'm your host, Tera, and I get it. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. I am your host, Tera, and this is my sex machine, the hot stud in my bedroom.
When I was in high school, we went to a rodeo at one point. And this is the only thing I remember about this rodeo.
I'm so nervous about what you're going to say.
Grew up in Mississippi. The only thing I remember about the rodeo was this large man with a belly. He had a shirt on. He said, "This isn't just a beer belly. It's a gas tank for my sex machine."
So do I need to find this shirt for you?
I have a horrible memory, but I can remember that.
That is hilarious.
It was imprinted.
Well, you are my sex machine,
Thanks.
Wes.
This is my gas tank.
Thank you so much for being here and being willing to dive into this topic with me. I know that a couple of things. One, with the podcast, really talking about this topic is one of the reasons we started this thing. Yeah. We knew that we wanted to talk about all the parts of life that nobody else really talks about. And sex was in our minds when we were saying that.
It was in my mind a lot.
It's always in your mind. And we've been, up until this point, this is episode number 15 for us, which is just so exciting. But we've been throwing topics out there. We've been trying all the different things and kind of just seeing what people respond to and what sticks. So today we want to just dip our toes into this, have kind of a generic, a broad, not to say that it's not deep, but we aren't going to be talking about just one topic related to sex today, just to kind of see if this is something y'all are interested in going deeper and talking about more specific things, because we ain't scared.
Yeah.
It's
taken us a while to get there.
It has taken us, well, yes and no, because one of the things I was about to say is I've been talking about sex for a long time, since we've been married, but it's not a topic I've ever been scared to have conversations about.
Yeah.
We got married in 2008 and I immediately started shooting weddings right after that. I shot my first wedding 2 weeks after we were married. And for the first couple of years of shooting weddings, not their mom, not their maid of honor, gave many of my brides the sex talk.
On the day of the wedding?
No, not the day of the wedding. That's not true. Several of them came to our house a few days before the wedding or a week before the wedding. And I sat down and told them what to expect, because we were 21 when we got married, and we're going to dive into our history. But many of my brides were young brides and they didn't have experience, and they were either virgins or they had very little sexual experience. So I just kind of told them, here's the 411. And I was not an expert. I am not good. I'm just someone willing to talk about it.
Which is what so many people want. It's just, I want to relate. Do you know what I mean? Oh, you have sex? Well, I have sex too.
Yeah.
We should talk.
You like fried chicken? Me too.
Yep.
Like,
it's like, let's look for that commonality.
Yeah.
But it's such a taboo topic.
For sure.
And I mean, understandably in ways, right? You know what I mean? It's like little ears, but also it's like some people, there's a fine line of just kind of going too far in a conversation or something like that, which I think is really great for female to female and male to male, just to have those conversations. But
yes, yeah. And we're going to definitely talk about the importance of talking about this. And that's a great point to bring up, is having these conversations. Like, I would not talk one-on-one about sex with another man. Absolutely not. Never, ever, ever.
Right.
But I'll talk about it to any woman, really. If you're my really good friend, we can go real deep with it, but I have no fear in talking to any female about it. But I do think that this is a conversation that, without both partners present, it definitely should be female to female, male to male. We are very big into protecting our marriage and creating boundaries so we both feel safe in it, and so we don't let anyone else or anything else into it, which is something we also plan to talk about. So yeah, I've given many of my brides the sex talk, and it's just crazy to me that no one else had done it before then, and that they are talking to their wedding photographer. Like, that was not in my job description at all. But also, I was a wedding photographer because I cared about the couple. I cared about the woman, not necessarily just because I love weddings, although I really love getting paid to eat cake, So I want to start by talking about some of the things that play into sex, and talking about sex that are kind of roadblocks, both in the conversation aspect and in the actual bedroom, that keep relationships from being more open. The most obvious is many people have trauma related to sex, whether that is trauma from someone doing something to them, whether that is rape or harassment, to trauma within their own marriage. Like we've talked about, Wes struggled with pornography for a couple of years without me knowing, and that created trauma for me and really broke that level of trust between us, where we didn't talk about sex. Right. It was kind of not on the table there for a hot minute. And so dealing with trauma is something that we're big on counseling, definitely recommend counseling for those things, but it plays a role into your sex life. Yeah. Another thing, shame, lots of people deal with shame. And I've always felt like shame was more female related because I struggle with shame in this area a ton, but also men struggle with shame, and that shame can look like, and actually I'll break this down. Someone recently asked me, what's the difference between shame and guilt? Yeah. And shame is something we believe about ourselves. It is something that we have convinced ourselves that we are, where guilt is more of like a moment thing. Like, if I trip someone up, I feel guilty because I tripped them. And then the shame would be, I'm a clumsy person. So that's kind of the difference between those two things. And
I can easily remember that from shame is me is in shame.
Yeah.
And me is identity.
Yeah.
So it's about you.
Yeah. That's a great point. So your shame in sex could be, my body doesn't work. My body, it doesn't know how to do this thing. For a woman, like, I don't know how to orgasm. I can't get this thing going. I don't ever get turned on. Or a man, like, maybe you go too quickly. Maybe you struggle, like, performing. The shame is in, my body isn't functioning the way the TV has told me that it's supposed to function. You're not adequate to be with who you're with. Maybe you have body image issues, especially for women that are post-baby. We feel like our bodies aren't adequate to be sexy. We don't feel good in our skin anymore. So we have shame in that. Or like, Wes, I know that you struggle with this and maybe you want to speak to it. I know your shame for a while was that you thought there was something wrong with you because you wanted sex a lot. You thought about sex a lot. And I know it took you a long time to finally admit to me, like, Tera, I think there may be something wrong with me because I want it all the time, and me encouraging you and saying, I've heard other guys talk about this. I promise you're not alone.
And now we know females too. Yeah, it's not a biased thing.
Yeah.
Majority males from what we understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I thought about sex a lot. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, no, like, because you thought you were broken for a bit, and that's shame. Like, you thought, Tera, do I need to see somebody? Do I have an issue? And you felt that way because other people, you weren't talking about it with anybody else.
Yeah.
You didn't know that there were other men in your life that thought about sex every day, you know? And so that's a struggle with not having that kind of open communication and those friendships that you can dive into in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, vulnerability, look at that. I have a really hard time saying that word.
Yeah.
Vulnerability and being open with people and just communication is just so important.
Yeah.
And we're just taught not to say these words, especially, typical white Southern American, like Christian home. We're brought in, like, we don't say those words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't need to talk about that. I went to a sex class when I was in like youth group, and like I'm assuming like around 6th grade or something like that. And I remember taking the book home, and it had like pictures of naked females, you know what I mean? I just remember looking at it like, oh man,
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's all private, right?
Yeah.
And sex is definitely a private thing.
Yeah.
But I think there is definitely needs to be some communication just to say that, hey, I'm not alone in what I'm feeling.
Which we're going to dive into that.
Let's do it.
Right now we're just talking about the shame part of it.
I always jump ahead.
You always get ahead. That's okay. That just is proof that you're here for a reason.
Amen.
Yeah. And so shame is a huge part of the struggle in sex with each other, and also guilt, because maybe you had sex, the last time you had sex, it wasn't what you expected, or you didn't make your partner feel good. You can't please them. So you feel guilt in that issue. And then that also turns into fear. If you have guilt from the last time, then you have fear of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not doing this right. I am broken. And so you're afraid. And so there are all of these layers, and those are just some of them.
Yeah.
And I'm saying them very casually, but they are actually very deep, and they are affecting your marriage ultimately. And so as casually as I'm talking about it, it's not a casual thing. And if this episode is something that resonates with y'all, I plan to go deeper in all of these issues. But right now we're cruising through. We're having
a quickie.
We are having a quickie today. Yes. Getting it done. And so the next thing I wanted to just share with y'all, knowing that we have these things that play into our relationships and into our sexual relationships, I wanted to share with you our personal background, just to lay this foundation, to lay this framework for future conversations about this topic. And so just really briefly, so what we walked into our marriage with and what we have encountered throughout the last 12 and a half years, so we can connect in this area.
Yep.
So for me, we were married when I was 21, and up until that time, I had most of my sexual experiences were from sexual harassment, my negative experiences that I brought into our relationship, from boys at the school bus, making me uncomfortable, talking and mocking my body, making fun of my body, to touching me inappropriately, to then sexual harassment in the workplace. I had one pretty intense coworker make comments and do things that made me very uncomfortable. So for me, that aspect of me was just, I had a lot of uncomfortableness. A lot of men had made me feel very small, very insignificant, and very uncomfortable. And then I paired that with a few relationships that I had in college, of mainly one person, but a few encounters that men had forced me essentially to do things that I didn't want to do. And I consider myself very lucky that I was never in a situation that I have not been raped, but I have been forced to have sexual encounters that I did not want, that played into our relationship after we were married. And then also for me, grew up Southern Christian girl, heard all the things with church, don't do it, all of these things. It's bad. It's whatever. But for me, what mostly affected me was the media representation of it and watching these like 90s teen movies. And so Wes and I, about 3.5 weeks ago, were bored one night. We were like scrolling through. We just wanted something super mindless that was a movie. And so we were like, let's just watch American Pie. Why not? And
which came out, I guess, while we were in high school.
Yeah, I think I was either a freshman or a sophomore in high school. And I watched that movie at my sister's boyfriend's house with him and his older brother and a group of people. And rewatching that now at this age, I'm like, well, we know where the Me Too movement started, because hearing these men that were the attractive actor, like those are the guys that we're supposed to want to be with, mock women's bodies, use their bodies for only sexual pleasure. Just the way they talked about women made me feel gross. It made me feel dirty. It made me feel unworthy. And that is what has played a lot into my shame, is that movie and several movies like it, seeing actors like Ashton Kutcher, like make fun of how a woman orgasms, like mocking them. Me just thinking, I never want to look like that. I never want my husband or anybody to see me in a way that they would mock me, which then put me in a very small box, And so those things played into when we got married, and I don't know. I always say by the grace of God, but there's no shame in however we go into our marriage. I don't want to put that on anyone. I happened to be a virgin on our wedding night. I made it to that night without a penis ever entering my vagina. Not to say I had not done a multitude of other things, but that one act of it had never happened to that point. And
we had some close calls.
Things got real dicey for a bit. Yep, they did. But on our wedding night, I was a virgin, so I discovered that entire aspect of sex with only Wes post-marriage. But all of these things played into that.
Yeah.
So how about you, bub?
Man, I remember like maybe it was the 4th grade. I didn't have sex then, but 4th grade, I remember this kid like had like a magazine that had naked women in it. You know what I mean? And like I still remember like somehow I got a hold of that and that thing stayed in my pocket. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh my gosh, like what is this going on? That's probably my earliest memory of like something sexual.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump in really quick. So parents, I want y'all to hear that. He was in 4th grade the first time he was exposed to it. And I recently told you that I saw pornography for the first time when I was 9.
Yeah.
So parents of little kids, don't be naive. They see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember we had dial-up and we had a computer room, and it was just a bedroom that had the computer in it. And doors completely open and everything. Like I guess I remember signing on, the
I used to put a pillow up against it to muffle it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What were you looking at?
It was 2 a.m. I was chatting with my boyfriend.
Oh, I see. But anyways, I remember going to Playboy.com.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was so innocent. I guess I was just curious.
Yeah.
And, like mom or dad walked in and like completely turned it off, and I don't remember what happened after that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if anything, because, it takes like 5 minutes for the page to load, so maybe nothing even happened.
You could see like the crease of her back. Okay, now you're getting
there's not a visual image in there. There's only like the text, Playboy.com. So that's about it. Fast forward to, I guess I was in college or high school. I honestly don't even remember.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And had a girlfriend who had sex before.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having sex. And it was a horrible experience. Just because, it's like, even when you're with your first time with your wife, it's more than likely, I've heard more negative stories than any positive. Do you know what I mean? So it's your first time having sex. It's like, okay, you last 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you can even make it in, you know what I mean?
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that, but that's true.
No, seriously. And just a really bad experience. It's funny. I think back sometimes to people like, who have sex in high school, and you're like, how in the world? You must be lying. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand. But that was short lived.
Yeah.
And then, not long after I met you.
Yeah.
And, I made it a point to not have sex.
Yes. Wes is the reason that I was a virgin. It was not me. I begged him to have sex with me. Just let's set the record straight.
Yeah. And it was a thing that just, I realized like, hey, this is not helping anyone, honestly. And it wasn't enjoyable. And so we, just waited.
Yeah.
And so, then you and I, Nashville, Tennessee on April the 5th, 2008.
Room 701.
Yep. Which didn't last long either. So.
No.
Yep.
I don't know that I've ever told you this. Here we go. You put rose petals on the bed that night.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to make it romantic and stuff.
Yeah, our wedding night.
Our wedding night. Yeah,
Okay.
you put red rose petals all over the bed. And I didn't know, like, when they rub against the sheets, like, the color transfers off of the rose petal onto the sheets. And I can remember, like, afterwards looking down, I thought I'd bled, like, all over the bed.
Gosh,
I was freaking out in my head.
Yeah.
It was just the rose petals. Yeah. So that is how little I knew about sex, that I would think that was just possible to leave that kind of evidence. It looked like a crime scene from the rose petals.
There was red everywhere.
They rubbed off a lot. Don't do that. You'll ruin your bed.
Yep.
So yeah, we both entered into our marriage together with two very different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Wes having that sexual experience before and me not, then added another layer to me that I thought for a long time didn't affect me, wouldn't affect me. But when I already had my own shame mixed in, then I had this comparison layer to it. For the first little bit, it was very difficult for me to get past, and feeling like I would never compare, that I wasn't good enough, all of these things. So really, like, it took us a long time to be comfortable. And really, like, 12 years, it's something that has been an up and down roller coaster for us since we've been married, and a constant struggle.
Yeah.
Like, which is why we're so open to share, because this has not been an easy process for us. We have had more fights surrounding sex than any other thing in our relationship. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say earlier, I think you feeling dirty and maybe bringing some of your past in, but you just feeling like it's, hey, I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be doing this. I feel like that's what you kind of struggled with for a while.
Oh, for a long time. And so one night we were trying to, like, connect on this and try to break it down in myself so we could hopefully move past it. And I was like, I'm a lady, like, I just want you to see me as a lady. And Wes looked at me like, so as serious as he has ever been, just dead on. And he said, I want a lady, and you are a lady, and I want to freak in the bed. And I was not expecting him to say that. And it was hilarious and so accurate and the perfect thing to say.
Lady in the street.
Yeah. I mean, you said it perfectly that night. And so it has taken us.
Pretty romantic.
You're so romantic. You know how to get me going. It's taken us a lot of work and a lot of struggle, including bringing pornography into our marriage, and then having to rebuild trust and rebuild confidence in myself. So when we are here talking with y'all about it, know that, like, ladies, come into my DMs. Like, I'm here to talk about this with you and share whatever struggle you are walking with. And I know that Wes feels the same for men. And so who we have become in our marriage. And I think that a lot of marriages have these two roles. There's the dominant sex partner, the person who sex fills them up. Physical touch is probably a high love language for them. They crave it. They are turned on more often, more quickly, more easily. They're just ready to go. And then what I have referred to myself as is the sleepy panda. And Wes has definitely been the dominant in our relationship, and I have been the sleepy panda.
Yeah.
And I want to first say that it is common for that to be a male-female thing, but I actually know several women that they are the dominant sex partner in their relationship. And that is amazing. Like, my goal is to be you, if that is you. I think that is so, like, awesome.
Thank you.
But also, I also know with that, especially for the woman, when they are the dominant, that they have a whole nother layer of shame.
Yeah.
Because for a woman to experience rejection from her husband, I hate to say that it's worse, but women just have so many bodily issues. Like, we already just function at a different level that I think the impact looks different. And so that's something that I wanted to talk about, was what sex actually does for the dominant sex partner. And this was something really eye-opening for me to realize that it's more than just sex. And I've heard in conversation to people that the woman was like, yeah, he's always wanting to get off. He just wants this. And they just view it as like, he just wants a good time. You know, he just wants this like hobby or this fun thing. And
who wouldn't want that?
Well, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
And so by whoever's the non-dominant, and I'm going to say the women for me in this moment, for us to recognize what sex actually does to our partners, it's more than just a release for them, but it creates confidence. It creates safety, stability. It makes them feel like they can conquer the world. So if Wes comes home and I am like ready to go, let's do this thing, and I interact with him on that level instead of just like get the job done. You know, I'm just like a participant, but not like in it, if that makes sense. The next day, he is ready to conquer the freaking workplace. Like, he comes into work ready to go. Let's make a sale. Let's do the thing. And his productivity, like, everything increases. And so there's the whole, if you watch Parks and Rec, Ron Swanson.
I was thinking of him, yeah.
Yeah, the night after he has sex, they can all tell because he comes in the office whistling. He's like talking to everybody. He's happy. And that is true, you know, the way that affects him. And so I started thinking about sex, like, if I can make Wes feel that way, if I can increase our salary, you know, like if I can make our business thrive simply by me initiating, being a participant, and making him feel like the strong, sexy man, okay, I'm here for that, you know. And I'm not going to say that I have been an initiator consistently in our relationship or that I have gone to that level, but by having that mindset, I have tried really hard to make sure that we have consistent sex, you know, and our entire marriage, we have had consistent sex. Has it been great sex? No. Has it been mind-blowing? No. Have I always been ready to go with lace and candles and da-da-da? Absolutely not. But I have at least attempted to make sure that Wes feels seen in that area. And I think that is the bottom layer for the Sleepy Panda. That's like the bare minimum of what we should be doing. And then realizing what our actions and how it affects y'all, the dominant person. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. The only thing I would say, though, that's very one-sided. And I feel like, and we're learning this right now, you need to also take care of yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I'm mainly just talking about the importance of us recognizing the needs of our partner.
Yeah.
You know? And then absolutely there's a whole other level of me reaching a point where I need to learn how to enjoy it for myself, you know? And that's something that if this one goes well, we'll talk about, you know, that is where we are at right now. So I feel like I can't speak into that yet because I'm still learning that aspect of it. So yeah, sex represents way more than just getting the job done, letting him have a good night. It goes a lot deeper than that.
There's a really big difference between sex and intimacy.
Yeah.
Sex is, as Dr. Glenn Hill says, slot A and slot B.
Yeah.
Or slot A and something. But intimacy is connecting.
Yeah.
Much deeper level. And I will say that's where I think a lot of dominant really feel, they want to have intimacy
Yeah.
with their partner.
Yeah. And so then why don't you, because I was speaking, why don't you share how it makes you feel after we feel intimate? Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, like you just said, on top of the world.
Okay.
I mean, confident, connected, all of the above. And, you know, sometimes just the quickie and the slot A and the slot B is just like, it gets the job done, but there's that lack of intimacy and connection.
Yeah.
So you may feel a release physically, but emotionally it doesn't serve its purpose.
Right.
And so I think a lot of couples, you know, maybe the female is just like, I'm just going to have sex with him.
Yeah.
If I have sex with him, get it done, get it over with. That's more than likely not what he needs.
Yeah.
You can have sex and it can be fun. Yay. It may feel good in the moment, but that's really not the connection that a marriage needs in the moment.
Yeah. And also, I will add that there's a time for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times where I just need to show up and help him get through that day, you know, and have that quickie, go to town, you know. Not every single time has to be this deep connection by any means. I'm a mom of 4 young children and I'm very, very tired. You know, like I call it the sleepy panda for a reason. And so this is really just starting that conversation for us to see the needs of our partner. So when we can start training ourselves to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I really want to talk about is the importance of these conversations, why we need to talk about it, and why are we not talking about it? And we aren't talking about it. We're not having these conversations because of the shame, because of the privacy, because we're afraid of judgment. And so I have been so lucky to have a couple of conversations within the last couple of weeks with 2 very close girlfriends where we went deep into this. And one of them specific, like we were able to really share like almost tips with each other and like what they're doing. And I left so inspired and so just like, okay, I may try that out, you know, and that was a safe space. That was someone that
you try that out tonight?
that I trust and that we connect, you know, like it's one of my very best friends. And so offering that environment for us to being a judgment-free zone and then leave both inspired to connect with our husbands on a deep level, that is what friendship is about, you know, like having that type of friend in my life, that the result of that friendship affects our marriage for positive is a beautiful thing. And then I've had another friend that she and her husband are where Wes and I have been in the past. They're in the circle, which is something I want to talk about. She is needing an emotional connection from him, and he is unable to give it right now because he is needing an emotional connection from her, which he's looking for through sex, that she can't give to him because she still needs the emotional connection. It is this circle and this cycle that we as couples all get caught in, and we have been there so many times.
Yeah.
And so she and I were able to have that conversation, and I was able to talk to her through it and tell her, we've been there and this is how we've come out of it when we get in it. And I'm not saying that we won't find ourselves back there at times, but we're more aware of it now than we have been. And so being able to share life with each other in that way has helped our marriages thrive. And so I just really encourage you to find those like couple of ladies in your life that you're not afraid to have these conversations with and ask questions and, you know, talk about what tools you have. Like me and my best friend, like we talked about what's in our toolbox, you know, and it's awesome. I absolutely love being able to live life with a woman that makes my marriage better.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
I don't have a toolbox.
And we're needing to talk about it because many of us are silently struggling, you know?
Amen to that. Yeah.
We don't know that we are all suffering because we're all watching these movies that make it look so glamorous, or one of you is watching porn that makes it look so easy and glamorous. And that is not what we are experiencing at home because none of us are talking about the fact that we are struggling.
Yeah.
So we feel alone. And so I've talked to someone else that I thought that they were just like dynamite all the time and having fireworks every night. And she confessed to me like that she had not, like it took her 6 years to have an orgasm. And it made me finally feel not broken, you know? And like, okay, I'm not the only one struggling. I'm not the only one suffering. I had gone 3 years without having one. And thanks, Dr. Glenn Hill. If y'all don't know, we really love them a lot for fixing that problem with me. But yeah, like as women, we have this thing that God made inside of us. It's like a freaking fireworks show that we don't ever buy the fireworks from because we're scared they're going to blow up in our hand.
Yeah.
And so to not be able to tap into that and feel comfortable talking about that with someone, you're only going to continue to be afraid and your marriage is only going to suffer if there is a person in the relationship that is looking for that type of connection.
Yep.
And if you want to meet that person where they are at, that is the kicker. Like if you have that dominant sex person in your marriage, they are needing something from you. They are looking for something from you. And we need to figure out that balance of how to meet them there. And also realize that it's fun. Realize that it's like God-given and God-created and that it's a free trip to Rome that you're just not taking advantage of.
Yeah. I mean, Rome, I don't know about that yet. Maybe.
What do you mean? No, I'm saying like we're paying for all of these things, fun things to do when there's something at home that's free, that's just as equally exciting.
Yes.
Once you learn how to use it.
I'm just so surprised to hear you say it's just as fun as Rome.
I wouldn't have said that prior to 3 weeks ago. We're learning and growing, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do love Rome.
And it's just going to bring you closer together in your marriage and honestly open up. Like,
yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. You know, I mean, there's so many times we could go all day on this.
Yes.
I mean, it's such a big topic.
Yeah.
But it's just trying things out. They're going to bring you closer as a couple.
Yes. That is point number 1 for today.
Cool.
Yes. And then know that if you are struggling in this area, you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You are not alone. I'm going to say that one more time. You are not alone. You are not broken. You may need counseling, yes, but that doesn't mean you're broken. You may need to talk to somebody about some trauma or some issues that y'all have brought into your marriage, but that doesn't mean you're broken. And that your partner is worth it. And they are going to show up in your life in a new and different way if you can meet them with that need. And then along the way, you discover something within yourself that you can tap into.
Okay.
So that this is our intro to sex. This is our Sex 101 talk, y'all. And if there is a specific topic that you're struggling with in this area, for us to talk about on here, DM me and tell me. You can find me at Tera Wages on Instagram because I would love to talk about more specific areas. I have a list of them, of areas that we have struggled in and talking about healing. You know, that's a huge topic for us to talk about. And I would love to.
You mean like after childbirth?
Well, childbirth, but then, you know, healing from
emotional healing
with each other. And because I know a lot of women are struggling with that. And so I just desperately want y'all to know that you're not broken and that I am not broken and that this is a conversation that I'm perfectly happy having again in a deeper way. And I'm not scared to say any of the words that we have been trained to not say. Vagina, penis, orgasm.
I'm so proud of you.
Boom. I said them. There we go.
It was a little difficult though for you. Just a little bit.
It hurt a little bit. It hurt a little bit. And so right now, I want to say thank you so much for the people who have gotten on, that have stayed with us for these 15 episodes and left reviews. You really do mean the world to me. And so I'm going to say a special thank you today to Betty Brazen. And what an appropriate name for
Betty
this
Brazen
episode. I love it. She says, it is refreshing to hear your point of view, joys, struggles, humors on so many things throughout this podcast. I got lucky. I was able to know you in person when we lived in Alabama, and I always had such a respect for your talent and your joy. Listening to this podcast has me nodding in my head, yes, over a sink full of dishes when I shut the door and let my 2- and 4-year-old fight on the back porch. Sometimes on the hard days, I hear you say I get it at the end of the podcast and it will bring me to tears. I wish we could make a habit of calling our friends, even if all we have to say is, I get it. You are doing great. It can be a game changer. happy birthday. Here's your present, the review, which is what I asked for my
That's
birthday.
yeah.
Thank you, Betty. Genuinely, thank you so much. I actually, based on that name, I don't know who you are. So DM me so I can give you an appropriate thank you. Reviews help me so much. They fire me up. They inspire me. Please get on the podcasting app on your phone and leave me a review. On YouTube, you can subscribe. You can hit the like button. If you have any comments, if you have any thoughts about this topic, if you are feeling alone, sad, guilt, shame, find me at Tera Wages. I'm here for you for this conversation. Thank y'all for being here. And I know that life is a little crazy, and there are days that you feel a little crazy, especially when you feel like you are broken and there is someone who wants something from you that you don't know how to show up and give them. You are not alone. I get it. Be happy and love each other. Peace.